You ever notice how, like, sometimes older adults, like your grandparents, seem a bit withdrawn?
Yeah,
They might not be as excited about things they used to love.
right.
We often hear, oh, it's just part of getting older. But what if it's not?
Mhm.
What if it's anxiety or depression, something we don't always associate with our senior loved ones?
Right.
Today, we're diving deep into this surprisingly common issue.
Okay.
We've got some fascinating research that reveals not only how widespread anxiety and depression are in older adults,
hmm
but also the unique challenges they face in getting diagnosed and treated.
Yeah, you're right. It's often brushed aside as just a normal part of aging,
Yeah.
but that's simply not true.
Right.
And to really grasp the scope of this, consider this.
Okay.
A recent study found that anxiety disorders are more prevalent in older adults than heart conditions or even cancer.
Wow.
It's a silent epidemic affecting millions.
I had no idea it was that widespread. So let's start with anxiety.
Okay.
What makes it so difficult to spot in older adults?
Well, the symptoms can be tricky. Go ahead.
They often mimic other age-related changes.
Uh-huh.
For instance, someone might experience digestive issues or fatigue
Yay.
and attribute it to simply getting older
Yeah.
when it could actually be a manifestation of anxiety.
Oh, wow.
Plus, there's a generational factor at play.
Okay.
Many older adults grew up in a time when mental health wasn't openly discussed,
Yeah.
so they may be reluctant to acknowledge or seek help for these feelings.
So it's sort of hidden in plain sight, and I
Well,
bet that makes it even harder to diagnose. Right.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important to understand the range of symptoms.
Okay.
We tend to think of anxiety as panic attacks,
Right.
but it can manifest in so many other ways.
Like what?
Muscle tension,
Mhm.
insomnia,
Oh, God.
even changes in vision.
Right.
It's truly a whole body experience.
The source material mentions generalized anxiety disorder, or GAD,
Yes,
as being particularly common in older adults.
it is very common.
What's that like?
Imagine a constant state of worry.
Like your mind is racing with thoughts you can't quite control. And this isn't just mental. It often manifests physically with symptoms like hot flashes, dizziness,
Wow.
or even frequent urination.
That sounds awful.
That can be incredibly debilitating.
It sounds exhausting. And then there's PTSD,
Right.
which the research suggests can resurface in later life. Even if the trauma happened decades ago.
Right.
Why does this happen?
Think of it like this.
Okay.
Trauma leaves a lasting imprint on the brain.
Okay.
And as we age, changes in our brain chemistry,
Okay.
coupled with new stressors like health issues or loss of independence,
Right.
can trigger those old wounds.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But if the trauma happened so long ago, wouldn't older adults recognize it as PTSD?
Not necessarily.
Right.
They might experience flashbacks or nightmares,
Oh.
but not connect them to the original event.
Wow.
Especially if they've never processed that trauma or talked about it,
Yeah.
it can be incredibly confusing and isolating. Oh, gosh.
And to add another layer of complexity,
Yeah.
the way PTSD presents in older adults can be different from younger populations.
Interesting.
They might focus more on physical symptoms,
Okay.
like chronic pain or fatigue, rather than the emotional aspects of the trauma.
So we've got this complex picture of anxiety manifesting in different ways,
Yeah.
often masked by other age-related issues.
Right.
What makes older adults particularly vulnerable to this in the first place?
There's a perfect storm of factors.
Like what?
Financially, many are on a fixed income,
Okay.
worried about rising healthcare costs or outliving their savings.
Right.
Physically, they're dealing with chronic illnesses, loss of mobility, maybe even cognitive decline.
Yeah.
Socially, they're facing the loss of loved ones, friends,
Right.
their support network shrinking.
It's a lot to cope with, and honestly, these are things we'll all likely face as we get older.
Yep.
So knowing this, what can we do?
Awareness is the first step.
Yeah.
We understand the common triggers and symptoms. We can be more attuned to the subtle signs.
Got it.
And that's key because early intervention is crucial.
The research suggests therapy is really effective for anxiety, right?
It is.
Yeah.
Therapy provides a safe space for older adults to process their anxieties,
Okay.
learn coping mechanisms,
Yeah.
and challenge those negative thought patterns that fuel anxiety.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
What about medication?
Yeah.
Is that usually part of the treatment plan?
It can be, but it's not always necessary.
Okay.
For some, therapy alone is enough.
Got it.
For others, medication might be a helpful tool in conjunction with therapy,
Okay.
especially if the anxiety is severe or impacting their quality of life.
Yeah.
but it's really about finding the right approach for each individual.
And what about those everyday things we hear about,
Yeah.
like exercise and diet?
Absolutely.
Can those help manage anxiety too?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Physical activity releases endorphins,
Right.
those feel-good chemicals that combat stress and improve mood.
And a healthy diet can help regulate blood sugar levels,
Ah,
which can have a big impact on anxiety.
it's all connected.
Mm.
And I was struck by the source material's emphasis on routine for managing anxiety.
Yes, routine is very important.
Uh-huh.
It provides a sense of predictability and control,
Okay.
which can be incredibly grounding when you're feeling anxious.
Yeah.
It reduces that feeling of overwhelm
Mm-hmm.
and helps older adults regain a sense of agency over their lives.
This is all great information, but I have to admit,
Okay.
when we think about mental health in older adults, depression often comes to mind.
Sure.
Is that as common as anxiety?
While anxiety is indeed more prevalent,
Uh-huh.
depression in older adults is a significant concern affecting millions.
Wow.
And one of the most dangerous misconceptions is that it's just a normal part of aging,
Right.
that it's just the blues or something.
Yeah.
But that's not true, is it?
No, I don't think so.
Not at all.
Okay.
Clinical depression, no matter what age it stripes, is a serious medical condition that requires professional attention.
Yeah.
It's not something you just snap out of.
Right.
And dismissing it as a normal part of aging can have devastating consequences.
So how do we distinguish between those normal ups and downs of life
Yeah.
and actual clinical depression in older adults?
That's where understanding the different types of depression comes in.
Okay.
We have major depressive disorder,
Mhm.
which is characterized by persistent feelings of sadness,
Yeah.
hopelessness,
No.
and loss of interest in activities that were once enjoyable.
Right.
Then there's persistent depressive disorder,
Okay.
also known as dysthymia.
Dysthymia, that's a new one for me.
It's often described as a low-grade persistent sadness.
Okay.
It's not as intense as major depression,
Got it.
but it can be incredibly draining over time, like
Yeah.
a constant weight on your shoulders.
Right.
And then there's depression caused by substances or medical conditions.
Okay.
Certain medications or underlying health problems can trigger depressive symptoms.
Oh.
So it's important to consider those factors as well.
So we've got these different types of depression.
Yeah.
And they're often overlooked or misdiagnosed.
Right.
What are some of the red flags?
Well,
The things we should be looking out for in older adults?
while feelings of sadness and hopelessness are common symptoms,
Right.
depression can manifest in less obvious ways too.
Okay. Like what?
Increased irritability, fatigue,
Mhm.
changes in appetite or sleep,
Okay.
even unexplained aches and pains.
Mm.
These might be brushed off as getting old,
Right.
but they could be signs of something more serious.
This is all starting to sound very familiar.
Yeah.
Kind of like with anxiety.
You're right. There's a lot of overlap in symptoms,
Yeah.
which is why it's so crucial to look at the whole picture.
Okay.
We need to consider physical health, medication side effects,
Mm-hmm.
social isolation, recent life events,
Mm-hmm.
and even cultural factors.
Cultural factors, how so?
The way depression is experienced and expressed can vary significantly across cultures.
Really?
In some cultures, physical symptoms might be more prominent than emotional ones.
Okay.
For example, an older adult might complain of back pain or digestive issues,
Right.
rather than explicitly stating they feel sad or hopeless.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
It really highlights the need to be sensitive to individual differences and cultural nuances.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it underscores the importance of open communication and not making assumptions based on outward appearances.
So let's say we notice some of these signs in an older adult.
Yeah,
What's the next step?
that's a great question.
Yeah.
And one we'll explore further in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay.
We'll discuss how to approach conversations about mental health with older adults,
Got it.
the importance of professional help,
Mhm.
and the empowering role family and community can play in supporting their well-being.
Okay, so we're setting the stage here,
Yeah.
understanding the nuances of anxiety and depression in older adults
Right.
and why it's so often overlooked. But the conversation doesn't stop here.
Right.
We're just getting started.
Absolutely.
We just finished talking about the complexities of anxiety and depression in older adults
Right.
and how they often go unnoticed.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's get practical.
Okay.
What can we actually do if we're concerned about someone?
Well, first, it's important to remember that we can't force anyone to seek help.
Right.
What we can do is create a safe and supportive environment where they feel comfortable opening up.
That makes sense, but how do you even start that conversation?
Yeah.
Talking about mental health can be tricky.
Right.
especially with older generations who might not be used to it.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
It requires sensitivity and patience.
Okay.
The research suggests starting by simply expressing your concern.
Okay.
You might say something like, I've noticed you seem a bit down lately,
Right.
and I wanted to check in and see how you're doing.
Okay, so keep it simple and genuine.
Exactly.
What if they brush it off
Yeah.
or deny anything's wrong?
Don't push too hard.
So sometimes just planting the seed is enough.
Right.
Let them know you're there for them, that
Yeah.
you're willing to listen without judgment.
Mhm.
You could even share some information about the resources available,
Like what?
like support groups or helplines.
And what about practical support?
Sure.
I'm thinking things like offering to help with errands, driving them to appointments,
Right.
or just spending quality time together.
Yeah.
Could that make a difference?
Absolutely.
Really?
These seemingly small gestures can have a profound impact.
Oh, wow.
They convey care and concern in a tangible way,
Right.
and they can also help alleviate some of the stressors that contribute to anxiety and depression.
I hadn't thought of it that way,
Yeah.
but it makes sense. If
Yeah.
someone's feeling overwhelmed by daily tasks or isolated, those acts of kindness can be a real lifeline.
Precisely.
Mhm.
And remember, sometimes the most valuable thing you can offer is simply your presence. Just being there to listen.
Without offering advice or trying to fix things,
Right, yeah.
can be incredibly comforting.
This all ties back to what we were talking about earlier
Yeah,
about the importance of social connection for older adults.
exactly.
Yeah,
As people age, their social circles tend to shrink
right.
due to loss, relocation, or health issues.
Yeah.
And this isolation can significantly exacerbate mental health challenges.
The research highlights the crucial role family and friends play in supporting older adults' mental well-being.
Yes.
But let's be honest, caregiving can be incredibly demanding.
it can.
It's not always easy to be that pillar of support.
You're right. Caregiving is a huge responsibility.
Right.
And it can take a toll on the caregiver's own mental health.
Oh, God.
It's important to acknowledge that and seek support when needed.
So what are some resources for caregivers who might be feeling overwhelmed?
There are respite care programs
Yeah.
that provide temporary relief for caregivers,
Got
allowing them to take a break and recharge.
Yeah.
There are also support groups where caregivers can connect with others
Okay.
who understand the unique challenges they face.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, therapy is a valuable resource for
Yeah.
both caregivers and the older adults they care for.
It sounds like a network of support is so important.
It is.
But what about professional help?
Sure.
When is it time to involve a doctor or therapist?
If you notice significant changes in behavior,
Like what?
like withdrawal from activities they used to enjoy,
Okay.
persistent sadness, or expressions of hopelessness,
Got it.
it's definitely time to seek professional help.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah.
But the source material mentions that older adults often face barriers to accessing mental health care.
Right.
What are some of those challenges?
Unfortunately, ageism plays a role.
Really?
Some healthcare providers might dismiss mental health concerns
Yeah.
as simply a normal part of aging,
Oh, gosh.
leading to missed diagnoses and inadequate treatment.
It's frustrating to think that someone might not receive the care they need because of their age,
Absolutely.
right?
And then there's the issue of stigma.
Okay.
Many older adults grew up in a time when mental health was taboo,
Yeah.
so they might be hesitant to seek help
Right.
or even acknowledge they're struggling.
It's like a double whammy,
It is.
facing both societal and internalized stigma.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this highlights the need for greater awareness and education among healthcare professionals about the unique mental health needs of older adults.
So it's not just about older adults overcoming their own reluctance.
Right.
It's about the healthcare system being better equipped to meet their needs.
Precisely.
Yeah.
We need to create a system
Okay.
that is sensitive, accessible, and tailored to the specific concerns of this population.
What about the role of the older adults themselves?
Yeah.
Can they be proactive in advocating for their mental health?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
It's about empowering them to ask questions,
Okay.
to speak up about their symptoms,
Mhm.
and to be active participants in their treatment.
But how do we empower someone
Yeah, that's a good question.
who might be feeling vulnerable or disempowered
Right.
by their age or health condition?
It starts with validation and respect,
Okay.
listening to their concerns,
Mm-hmm.
acknowledging their feelings,
Right.
and treating them as the experts on their own lives.
I like that.
Yeah.
Recognizing their agency and autonomy.
And it's about encouraging them to be informed,
Oh,
to learn about mental health conditions,
Right.
treatment options, and available resources.
yeah.
Knowledge is empowering.
It is.
And it can help dispel some of the myths and fears surrounding mental health.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
The more we understand about something,
Right.
the less scary it becomes.
Exactly. And it's not just about individual action. It's about changing the broader societal conversation around aging and mental health.
You're right. We need to move away from this narrative that equates aging with decline and embrace the idea that older adults can continue to grow, learn, and contribute to society in meaningful ways.
And this brings us to a crucial question.
Okay.
How do we foster that sense of purpose and meaning in later life, which is so essential for mental well-being?
That's a great segue to our final segment.
Okay.
We'll be exploring how older adults can find fulfillment, connect with their passions, and live their later years with vitality and joy.
I'm looking forward to that conversation.
Me too.
It's a reminder that aging doesn't have to be a time of decline.
Right.
It can be a time of rediscovery and renewal.
We've talked about the challenges of anxiety and depression in older adults, but now I want to shift gears and talk about something really uplifting.
Okay.
The power of purpose and meaning in later life.
Yeah, it's fascinating how much research supports that. The idea that having a sense of purpose is directly linked to better mental and physical health.
Yeah, it makes you wonder if maybe we've got it all wrong. When we think of retirement as a time to just slow down and disengage, what if it's actually an opportunity for something more?
I think that's a great point.
Yeah.
Retirement can be a time to reconnect with passions
Okay.
that may have been put on hold due to work or family obligations, or to discover entirely new interests.
The source material highlights the idea of successful aging, which I love.
I love that term.
It's not just about living longer.
Exactly.
It's about thriving.
Exactly. And a key component of that is feeling like you have something to contribute, something to look forward to each day.
Like what?
It could be volunteering, mentoring, taking up a creative hobby, or even starting a business.
I've heard stories of people in their 70s and 80s who start painting, writing, or even learning to code for the first time.
Wow, that's amazing.
It's never too late to tap into that creative energy.
Absolutely. And think about the wisdom and experience older adults have to offer. They've lived through so much, navigated challenges, and gained invaluable insights. Sharing that with others, whether through mentoring or storytelling, can be incredibly fulfilling.
It challenges that stereotype of older adults as being frail or dependent.
Exactly.
They have so much to give back to their communities.
And those contributions benefit everyone.
How so?
The research shows that intergenerational connections are incredibly powerful.
Interesting.
When older adults are actively engaged with younger generations, it creates a sense of continuity, breaks down stereotypes, and fosters a sense of belonging for everyone involved.
So instead of seeing aging as a decline, we should be viewing it as a time of continued growth and contribution.
I think that's a great way to put it.
It's almost like a second act.
Yeah.
A chance to redefine yourself and what's important to you.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
And remember, purpose doesn't have to be grand or complicated. It could be as simple as tending a garden, spending time with grandchildren, or volunteering at a local library.
It's about finding those activities that light you up.
Exactly.
That give you a sense of joy and accomplishment.
Yeah.
And that might look different for everyone.
Absolutely. And that's where the idea of individualized care comes in.
Okay.
We need to support older adults in finding their own unique paths to purpose and meaning.
This has been such an insightful deep dive.
It has.
We started by exploring the often hidden struggles of anxiety and depression in older adults. But we've ended on such a hopeful note.
We have.
Recognizing the incredible potential for growth and fulfillment in this stage of life.
And I think the key takeaway is that we all have a role to play in supporting older adults' mental well-being. It's about fostering a culture of respect, inclusivity, and understanding. And recognizing that aging is not a decline, but a continuation of life's journey, full of possibilities for purpose, connection, and joy.
Beautifully said. And to our listeners, remember, this deep dive was just the beginning. We encourage you to explore the resources we've provided in the show notes. And to keep the conversation going in your own families and communities.
Exactly.
Let's work together to create a world where older adults feel valued, supported, and empowered to live their later years to the fullest.
Thank you for joining us on this journey.